sleepyheads, get up, get up, get out of bed. Cheer up, the sun is red. Live, love, laugh and be happy. What if
Hello and welcome to this week's Robin Pod Weekly, which is of course powered by Budget Size Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the club officials, players and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. And first of all, an apology. If you're watching and listening to this, thank you for sticking with it. I know there's been a few sound issues over the last couple of weeks with the podcast. We're working on it. It should be resolved hopefully with this podcast. If not this one, definitely by the next one. So thank you for sticking with it. This week, I'm joined by Steve Till, and we start off with a bit of a somber mood, Steve, don't we? Because we've just heard news that Phil Lowe has sadly passed away. Phil, heritage number 703, made his debut for the Robins on the 3rd of April in 1967. He made 418 appearances over two spells with the Robins and scored 179 tries, 12 Great Britain appearances, which included a World Cup final victory. He won the Challenge Cup with the Robins, the Premiership and the Championship. He went on to serve the club as chairman and most recently, of course, as director. And he also enjoyed a successful career over in Australia, one of the few players to go across and make a real name for himself with Manly in 1974, winning the grand final whilst there. Steve, welcome to the Robin Pod. Of course, so it's bittersweet, I suppose, because it's very sad news what we start off with.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember his full career. And for me, he was the greatest forward that ever played for Rovers. You know, you'll never forget his long striding, bullocking runs that had the opposition backpedaling all the time. It was a wonderful, wonderful player and a wonderful man. And I'll never forget his career. I put him only second behind Roger as the greatest Rovers player. So therefore, that's why I've said the greatest forward. It was outstanding. It was huge, and he didn't have to play dirty. I think he got sent off once in his career, and I was at that game, and I remember the referee sending him off, and he hadn't done anything that warranted sending off. So he wasn't a dirty player. He was a tough, hard running forward who, like you say, went to Manly and he wowed them down there. You know, you could still go in. There's a pub in Sydney in Manly called the Steen, Steyne, and if you go in there and you talk to the old timers in there, and they loved Phil Lowe, and he was there with Mel Reilly, who was a great friend of his. And they held him in the highest esteem in Manly, and what going to Manly helped his career, believe it or not from the point of view of his career as such, but his style of play, because he didn't have the best defence. You know, he was a good long striding forward who knocked people off, but defensively he wasn't the best. But when he went to Manly, they taught him how to defend a little bit better, and he came back for my money, a better player. You know, I remember, I go back to 1967, Rovers played Australia and beat them 27-15, and the game goes down as one of the great games that Roger ever played, but it was also one of the great games that Phil played. I think he was 17, 1967, so he was born in 50, yeah, so he was 17. And he turned out against people like Johnny Raper and McDonald and some great Australian players, and they held him in the highest regard. And then he's always been a red and white. He spent time as coach at York for a while, I think, but a true red and white. People. You look at the video, I think Rovers have put a video out. It's such a shame that in those days there weren't that many films or videos of players, because his video would be outstanding. I remember going to Wembley in '73, played for Great Britain, Australia. There was only 10,000 in the ground the old Wembley, it looked empty. But Great Britain played Australia. Australia had insisted in playing in London, so that's why the match took place at Wembley. And Lowe strode through. He scored 2 magnificent tries. And I think that's, you know, one of the highlights of his career, that game, you know. And he was just such a great player and a great man, lovely fella to talk to. Always had a chat with everybody he met, willing to talk. I remember bumping into him coming home from Murrayfield. I think Rovers had been beaten 50-0 by St Helens that day, and stopped at the services at Newcastle, the Washington services, and in walked Phil with Jed Dunn and Peter Johnson and Johnny Whiteley, and we sat and chatted that evening, you know, at midnight, gone midnight. And he was always willing to talk and chat and look back. We all have to look back because we're all getting older. But when I look back at Phil's career, it's one of the best I've ever seen. And it was upsetting to hear that he'd passed. I knew he'd been ill. Most people knew he was ill. But it's still one of those memories when you get to my age, mate, you look back and, you know, there's a lot to look back on, and Phil will certainly be one of the highlights of my rugby league supporting days.
Yeah, Steve, and you know, unfortunately, a lot of people will be listening to this Robin pod and watching on YouTube. Unfortunately, won't have had the opportunity to watch Phil in full flight. I mean, videos and footage of rugby league pre-1980s is scarce and very rare indeed. And you know, what type of player was he, Steve? Because from stories of other people recounting their memories of seeing him play, is he a player you could maybe liken him to in the modern day rugby league? That people could maybe.
He'd have run riot in summer rugby. He would have run riot in summer rugby and the modern day game. He'd have fitted in perfectly. I don't know. I can't really compare him to anybody because I can't think of anybody in the modern game today that had that stride, that had that, you know, bullocking is the word somebody used to me this morning. Bullocking, you know, he just charged through and when he got open space, when he got that space, it devoured the ground up, you know. And I would have hated to have been a fullback faced with Phil Lowe coming at him, because you're on a hide into nothing. And one player at Rovers who benefited from that was Steve Hartley. Lowe held quite a record. He was I think he was the highest scoring forward for Rovers, and I think he's in the top 6 try scorers. As is, I think there's only Steve Hartley and probably Roger.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it's thanks to Phil that Steve Hartley got his tries, a lot of his tries, and Steve would tell you that, you know. It was just such a going back in time, there was a player called Dick Huddart who played for St Helens, and he was a Cumbrian, and he was renowned for the same style of football. There was a guy, Bob Irving, as well, but Huddart was classed as one of the best second row forwards of all time. Well, Phil wouldn't have been far behind him. Huddart went over to play for St George, I think, in the Sydney League. Phil wouldn't have been far behind him at all, you know. Yeah, I can't praise Phil Lowe highly enough. Like I say, the modern game, you know, he did a lot of his scoring in winter games where the mud was on the ground, and you know, it was much tougher to get the momentum. And so when he went to Australia and played on those harder grounds, that's when I think the Australians possibly saw the best of him. Those 3 years he spent at Manly, he came back to Rovers, and he never played for Great Britain again after that. And someone pointed out to me earlier that I think he was only 26 when he came back from Manly. And yet he never played. I don't think he played for Great Britain again, which I don't know. I don't know why, because it was certainly in his pomp, You know, I remember a match against Bradford, I think it was, where Peter Flanagan put Lowe away. They went blindside. They made a blindside move, and it was a subtle pass from Flash, and Lowe just had the ground opened up for him. You know, he just went, and I think he put a guy who played for Rovers called Mike Stevenson, not Steve Hull, but Mike Stevenson. I think they put him away for a try. And those little things, you know, those memories.
But Steve Bazza, who's watching on YouTube, he's mentioned, thanks for tuning in, first of all, Bazza. Manly, he believes they're going to be holding a minute silence prior to their NRL fixture. Obviously, just shows you what high esteem Phil Lowe is thought of during his spell there. But of course, came to Hull Kingston Rovers for his second spell, and there's not many players, Steve, who come back to clubs for a second time who were almost just as good as when the first came around. And Phil Lowe, like you said, such a shame that he didn't go on to get more international recognition at such a young age as well, coming into the pomp of his career.
Yeah, well, the ruling was if you went to Australia, you lost your chance of playing for Great Britain. Now, why he never played after he came back, I don't know. But, you know, you couldn't be selected for Great Britain. It happened to '𝗲𝗏𝗟, it happened to Steve Norton, it happened to Brian Lockwood. Although Lockwood did play in '79 after he'd come back. He played in that, '78, he played in that Dad's Army test where Great Britain beat Australia at Bradford. But so why Phil didn't, I don't know. But he benefited from, as I said, the hard grounds in Australia, and they absolutely loved him out there. There was, I think, Manly had 3 British players. I think they had Gary Stevens at scrum half. They had Phil, and they had 𝗲𝗏𝗟𝗏. What a team that was, you know. And Lowe scored in the grand final, you know. So what did he win? He won a World Cup final. I don't think there's another player that's done that.
He won the World Cup final. He's won the Challenge Cup, the Premiership, the Championship. He won the New South Wales grand final.
The NRL. That's the NRL.
Yeah, so remarkable achievement. And Steve, people will look to what he did on the pitch. Obviously, you know, he's had such a fantastic career out on the green stuff, but not only did he serve Hull Kingston Rovers so admirably on the pitch, he served it off it as well. Chairman of the club in the early 90s, and most recently director at the club, and a great sounding board for his friend Neil Hudgell, and sadly, of course, Rob Crossland, who sadly passed away just a couple of weeks ago. So he's terrible news, but you know, just as a remarkable effort on the pitch, he served the club so well off it.
Yeah, it was red and white through and through. As a kid, he went to Jarvis School. I'm not sure if he represented. I know he represented Hull schoolboys. Whether he went, I don't know his history in terms of Yorkshire schoolboys and Great Britain schoolboys. But when Rovers signed him, he was 16. And I think his debut was against Castleford. Rovers drew with Castleford in the cup, 6-6 at Craven Park, and they went. Listen to this one. They went to Cass. The kickoff. The match was played on a Thursday afternoon, and they brought the kickoff forward to 4 o'clock. Such was the clamour for tickets to get to the match, and I think the attendance unofficially was about 26,000 in Weldon Road at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think Phil might have made his debut in that game as a substitute. Castleford beat Rovers 14-6 in that replay. I remember being there. I remember getting the time. They gave the schools time off. Any school kid who wanted to go could have time off from school. And as I say, and I also remember walking down Weldon Road and seeing buses from Batley, Huddersfield, Dewsbury to see that game, and that was Phil. I'm pretty sure that might have been Phil's debut for the first team, and they just went on from there. And he was 16, he was 16, and facing people like Reilly and Dennis Hartley at Castleford, big towering forwards, but he held his own. And then, like I say, he played against Australia in '67. And then he also played the following week. Rovers beat Australia, and then the following week it was the Yorkshire Cup final where we beat Hull 8-7, and he played in that match as well. And from then on, he was always in the team. You know, how many appearances? 400 and odd.
Yeah, 418 appearances over 2 spells. I mean,
yeah. And then you take, and that's with 3 years out. How many matches would he have played? You know.
Yeah.
There aren't many players that have done that for one club. He was that we use the word legend, don't we? But he was a true legend, an absolute, and a true gentleman, and someone who, for someone kind of my era, we'll never forget Phil Lowe, and we'll tell our kids and our grandkids and what have you, and the legend will live on.
Yeah,
it's just
the club have made
the videos and what have you to show.
Yeah, because the highlights reel would go on for hours probably. The club have made an area available down at Craven Park for supporters to go pay tribute to Phil and lay flowers and pay their respects. And of course, now Friday's game, Steve, takes on extra significance, doesn't it? Because the club do so well in paying tribute to the people who've gone before, and no doubt Friday is going to be an emotional encounter for a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope people go, because it's a cup game, so season ticket holders don't automatically get entry. So people are going to have to pay a few quid extra. And cup games generally don't get as big a crowd. But I truly, if you're a Rovers, if you're listening to this, you're a Rovers fan, get yourself out. Unfortunately, I can't get down there because I've just had a procedure done. But get yourselves down there and, pay tribute to one of the greatest players. One of the greatest players that this club has ever, or the supporters of this club have ever had the chance to witness. And I'm glad I witnessed him in his pomp. Rovers
definitely, Stephen. It's been great to hear about your memories of Phil Lowe, and all I can say is rest in peace, Phil Lowe. And very sad time.
Rest easy, big fella. Rest easy.
Yeah. So let's move on to Rovers' victory over Huddersfield on Saturday. Steve, I don't know, would you put it up there as maybe the best performance of the season in terms of it being? Well, it was almost an 80-minute performance, wasn't it? I'm sure 𝗬𝗓𝗏𝗏 won't be happy with them 2 late tries that the Robins conceded. But on the whole, it was for me, it was a very dominant performance. And although the scoreline looks like the game was closer than what it was, for me, I thought Rovers were in total control.
Yeah, I agree. And even those last 10 minutes, I'm going to bring a point on about that. They were dominant throughout. They were dominant. You'll know that I tipped Huddersfield to win because we have that little competition. And I genuinely thought Rovers, and it's based on past history at the ground, past Rovers' performances at the ground. But I genuinely thought that Huddersfield might just nick it. But after 10 minutes, all thoughts of that had disappeared. I thought we dominated them. We covered the danger men. We frightened them to death, to be honest, because it got to the point where our line speed was that good, that they were just throwing the ball here, there and everywhere, and they were bombing the ball. Well, Huddersfield. So, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, you're right. It was the best performance of the season, and it augurs well for the season because there was one other thing that might have contributed, and that was the ground was fair. The ground, it was ideally suited to our style of play, or our style of play was ideally suited to that surface. It was a good surface. It's the first good surface we've had to play on. And we performed admirably. And we talk about the last 10 minutes. Let me tell you, their first try came when Mikey Lewis was flattened, was injured. And so we were down to 12 men at that point. So that gap that everybody says, they've created a gap. That gap was created when a certain Jake Connor did the dirty on Mikey Lewis, and I've no doubt I'm going to touch on it now. I thought that was a diabolical tackle. Not only did Connor lead with the elbow, and I can't believe that Sky didn't go back and show it again. And I can't believe it wasn't brought to the attention of the referee, because the referee would have stopped. If he'd have seen a video of that, for a start, Connor goes in with the elbow on Mikey's face. All right, that happens. But then to kick out as well. There was a player got 3 matches for kicking out like that earlier in the season, wasn't there? Wasn't there a certain...
𝗬𝗂𝗍𝗲.
I don't like mentioning the names, but yeah. You know. And had that been the first game of the season, Connor would be sitting on his backside for the next 3 or 4 games. That was a diabolical. And all through that match, Connor was chirruping at the referee non-stop. So why they put up with it, I don't know. But I thought it was diabolical, and he got a £250 fine. What's that all about? But going back, it was at that point that Rovers conceded the first try, and Adam Swift always scores against us, doesn't he? You know, Adam Swift got the second try. But I don't think it was as bad a last 10 minutes as some people think, because of the fact we were down to 12 men for part of it. And you know, our play was broke up by the fact that Mikey wasn't on the pitch. I've got to pay tribute to Mikey Lewis. I thought that was one of his best games defensively. I thought he had a magnificent game defensively. You know, it was Mikey in attack, but I thought he tackled pretty well throughout the game. And I think if I'd seen the team sheet before, and I think you'll know that for the past 3 weeks, at least, I've been suggesting that Evans go fullback and Nico in the centre, and that's what it did. And it paid off, and I think it might pay off again and again and again this season. Yeah,
well, let's talk about that lineup, Steve, because Willie Peters made a bold call, didn't he, in changing that whole right edge. We saw Burgess line up at winger, 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏 going into the centres, and also 𝗀𝗡𝗂𝗏𝗏 dropped to the interchange bench. Was it obviously it was the right call, wasn't it? People may be surprised about Tom 𝗻𝗂𝗏𝗏 being dropped from the side. Of course, he's maybe not had the best start to the season. He seems to favour the warm weather and the harder, firmer pitches. But Willie Peters got that call absolutely spot on.
It was a brave call, because I was wondering whether his loyalty to 𝗻𝗂𝗏𝗏 would outweigh everything else. And listen, he was one of my favourite players last season, was 𝗻𝗂𝗏𝗏, and I still believe he's a good player. But like you say, I think he's a summer rugby player. I don't think he likes the soft grounds at the moment. And he's made a couple of mistakes in the first couple of games, and that's what led me to believe that the change should be made. And I didn't expect it this time. I thought he might make the change either in the cup tie or against Hull. But I'm glad he made that change, and I feel sorry for Tom 𝗻𝗂𝗏𝗏, and we'll just see what stamp of a man he is, because he's got to fight back. And it's always tough fighting back, but he'll get his opportunities again. In fact, I think he might get his opportunities sooner than you think.
Yeah, and the consequence of that change was 2 tries for 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, which of course though was preceded by 𝗦𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗏's 3 assists and 𝗦𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗏's. I just loved the way he seemed to glide through the opposition defence. You know, he's got soft hands. He's able just to. He just seems to go about his game with relative ease. You know, I think he oozes class for me. He just and the assist for 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏's second try, the way he glided round the Huddersfield defence, it was absolutely fantastic. And he is a different type of fullback to 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏. I think Willie Peters has already admitted that Hiku had the opportunity to stake a claim for the starting fullback role. He's now wanted to try 𝗍𝘆𝗲, as he has done in previous games. He wanted to give 𝗍𝘆𝗲 a go at fullback to see what he could do. And you know, I know Willie Peters has said that he's going to pick the team based on the opposition and who we're lining up against, but it's going to be very hard to change that right wing and fullback slot for the Salford game based on what they did against Huddersfield.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll no doubt be talking about the Salford game in a while, but 𝗧𝗂𝗧 is a natural centre. I don't understand the conversation. I think it was after 𝗀𝗂𝗡 had to retire, but I don't understand the conversation that suggested 𝗂𝗂𝗡 might play fullback. You know, when we signed the conversation to the signature, which Willie Peters obviously had, because you need in the modern game a kind of halfback fullback, if you see what I mean, an extra standoff. If you understand what I mean, the role of fullback now, I think the last really good old-style fullback I think Rovers had was Sean Briscoe, but since then you've as Lachlan Cope proved, you need a fullback who can kind of become an extra halfback who can link into the line and someone with that bit of extra fleet of foot, if you like, and we've got it now in 𝗍𝗍𝗲𝗏.
Yeah, and what about the defence though, Steve? I mean, we're talking about the creativity, the tries scored, you know, the ball in hand, how it shifted and moved about, but that's on the back of a really solid defensive effort from the Robins, and it's something that we've seen since game one against that lot. I mean, leading the charge was Dean Hadley, who started the game at second row in place of 𝗂𝗡𝗡𝗏 Tanganoa. He moved up to prop during the game as well. I think he did about 75 minutes, so absolutely outstanding effort from him. And it's not just the minutes on the pitch, it's what he contributes to the game whilst on the pitch. And for me, what summed up the attitude, the willingness to defend for each other, the willingness to make things happen through defence was, of course, 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏's try when we saw Huddersfield trying to play out from their line. The aggressiveness, the speed, the intensity ultimately led to a Huddersfield mistake with Litton then being able to touch the ball down. And I think I do think Willie Peters gets more excited about being able to keep the opposition down to as fewer points as possible, maybe more so than he does the amount of points we're going to score. But that is what's going to stand us in good stead for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I alluded to it earlier that we frightened. I don't mean physically frightened them, but they were making stupid passes because they were worried about our defence being so quick. The defence was so quick, they were having to make decisions that they wouldn't have made against another team. And I likened it. I don't know if you saw the Salford Wigan match, but that last 5 minutes, crazy 5 minutes in that game. Wigan won that game by that kind of quick defensive line. I believe you should defend every 10 meters. Wherever you are on the pitch, you defend that 10-meter line. Okay, so if you look at the Wigan-Salford game, Wigan pushed, they tackled a player, I can't remember who it was, inside the field of play and tackled him into their in-goal area, which caused that dropout, which Sneyd did what he did. And Rovers have got to be like that Wigan team. Rovers have got to defend each 10-yard line as far as I'm concerned. And if you get the upper hand in the opposition half, then you're going to win matches, aren't you? And I think they achieved a lot of that on Saturday. I think that's the style of rugby, that's the style of defence that Willie Peters wants, and I think they achieved it on Saturday, and that's what went a hell of a long way for us to get the 2 points from the game.
Yeah, man of steel points, 3 points went to Tyrone May. 𝗍𝗍𝗏𝗏's got 2. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Hiku picked up his first man of steel point. And then in the dream team this week was 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on the back of his 𝗀𝗲𝗏, so some good recognition for them. Some, I suppose, disappointing news. We've already mentioned the Mikey Lewis injury on the back of Jake Connor's, I don't know, overzealousness in the tackle. Let's call it that. I'd call it a lot worse because I think he was a grub and I think he knew full well what he was doing.
I think for the first time I used that word about him, total grub.
Yeah. So do you know what? I think he's a player where the opposition players actually just look at him and laugh at him. Like, he has zero impact on influencing the game, and he's not able to influence it through his playing ability because I think he's a bang average player, and he influences even less through his petulance, his almost arrogance in the way that he speaks to players and conducts himself. And you know what? Long may it continue, because whilst it benefits other teams and most importantly Hull Kingston Rovers, then yeah, long may it continue. So don't change, Jake Connor. You stay the same.
Can you remember about 3 or 4 years ago when people were actually suggesting it might be the England fullback? And I used to say, what we're talking about here. And I think he did play for England at some point. But how can anybody have thought that he would be for a start, Shaun Wane wouldn't wear it, would he? He wouldn't wear that attitude that Connor's got. It'd kick him out. And like you said, long may it continue like that. Because the only person he's hurting, the only person is upsetting his own teammates in a sense, but the only person he's hurting is himself. And why he continues playing the way he does, because he's not good enough to act like that. You look at Mikey Lewis. Mikey Lewis plays the game. I was so impressed with him last Saturday. I really was, because he never made a mistake in the tackle. He never went high. He tackled his guts out, but it was all legal. And he might have a little word to another player, such as Connor. And I believe he probably had one Connor up to the extent that Connor reacted like that in the 64th minute. But Mikey Lewis, he just plays the game as it should be played, whereas Connor, who might at some point have shown a modicum of the ability in Mikey Lewis, he just let himself go. And
for me, Steve, there's almost no comparison. But for me, Mikey Lewis had the kick up the backside last season when he started to show some I don't know, petulant behaviour, doing stuff that he didn't need to do. He learned from it, and now we're reaping the benefits because, looking at how young he is, but the way he conducts himself and plays on the pitch now, it's not chalk and cheese, but he's definitely learned his lesson. And he is one of the senior players within that side, which is remarkable when you consider he's still tender age. And I do think being part of the England setup has helped him, and the advice Shaun Wane's passed on to him, and being around some of them other senior players within the England setup has taken him to that next level. And again, he looked so short against Huddersfield, as did Tyrone May. And Tyrone May, I mean, he's a funny player to watch, isn't he? Because he almost plays the game with like as little effort as possible. But what he does do is effective. And he's another player that I love watching because you don't know what you're going to get, but he's effortless in what he does as well. And
he's got a good defense. He's not afraid to go in and do the hard stuff as well, with tackling. He's unbelievable. He plays as though he's got a dinner jacket on. And for me, it's almost looking lazy, but it's not lazy, if you see what I mean.
No.
He does it so easily. There's 3 May brothers, isn't there? And I think they're all pretty much the same. They're so laid back. I'm told that Tyrone May had a year-long game, didn't he, for some misdemeanor back in Australia. And I'm told that I heard in an interview that he studied rugby. All he did for that year was watch the game and look at how he could improve when he came back. So he watched all the plays, he watched videos, he watched matches to make a self-improvement for when he came back, and we've gained the benefit of that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just say, going back, you gave the man of steel points. I can't believe Dean Hadley didn't get any points. I really can't. You've paid tribute to him earlier for his performance on Saturday, and you know, I think 𝗬𝗂𝗍𝗲 says it. He's a player that the rest of the players respect because of the hard yakking that he does, and I thought he had a magnificent game, an absolutely magnificent game last Saturday.
Yeah, 100%, Steve. Right, so we move on. Salford up next in the Cup after 5 rounds of Super League. Rovers currently sit 6th in the table, but we embark on our Challenge Cup journey. Of course, reached the final last season, and that was after defeating Salford in the quarterfinals of the Challenge Cup last year. They're up again at Craven Park on Friday night as we enter the 5th round. I caught up with Salford fan Paul Whiteside to get his views on Friday's game. Joining us next is Paul Whiteside from the Devil in the Detail podcast. I think your co-host, Paul. Salford this season, many people tipped to struggle, but I tell you what, they've proved a few of the doubters wrong so far, haven't they? A great victory against St Helens, and then running Wigan so close. And I think many people would have look at the scoreline and think it was a convincing Wigan victory, and Salford really did run them close last time out, Paul.
Yeah, they did. To be honest with you, we could have won all the games. We was unlucky at Leeds on that first for the opening night. To be honest with you, I mean, Leeds, you know, with Brodie Croft and Andy Ackers and the fanfare that they had at the start of the season, I went to that game thinking, oh, we're going to get swamped here. But you know, credit the lads. I thought they put a real good effort in and come up just short. The Wigan game, as you said, I think we came back really well and had Wigan sort of rocking in that game. And there's only a few decisions that we took, you know, the Sneed dropout, things like that, sort of went in Wigan's favour. Wigan are a quality side, aren't they? When you give them half a chance, they'll take it. So the win at Saints was a good one. I think the spirit the lads have shown, particularly the win against 𝗀𝗂𝗽𝗏, we beat you guys at home, was a really good win on a foul night. So we made a very positive start to the season, and the squad's getting tested now. We've got a few lads out at the moment, a few injuries and whatever. It's a paper-thin squad, so we're probably going to run out of numbers, but we just keep going week in, week out, see where we end up.
Yeah, I mean, particularly that Wigan game, I think, you know, you look at the stats, 55% possession, but a completion rate is 66%. I mean, against any team in Super League, you know, your completion rate's got to be much higher, hasn't it? Especially when you got so much of the ball. And I suppose that highlights probably where the game was maybe won and lost for Salford, just that they couldn't complete them sets when they needed to.
Yeah, I think when you're playing a good side like Wigan, you've got to be squeaky clean. You can't afford to give them any sort of opportunities, really, can you? And the more possession you give to them, they'll just dominate you, won't they, and grind you down. So yeah, we made mistakes in that game, and we weren't clinical enough. When we got in front there at 12-10, I think there was an opportunity for us to kick a penalty goal, and perhaps we should have done. But talking to a few supporters at the game, and they were saying that they don't want to change the way we play. We sort of play a very sort of off-the-cuff style and like a swashbuckling style of play, really. I mean, sometimes it's a bit of a nightmare for the coach and supporters, you know, nerve-wracking and that. But, I mean, it's entertaining, isn't it, I suppose? So it's a bit like Kevin Keegan, the way he's played at Newcastle. We'll score more than you sort of thing. But no, we'll see where it takes. It's been an exciting start to the season, no doubt.
Yeah, and you know you're not going to finish anywhere near the bottom. So I suppose that style of rugby gives you a chance of pushing your way into the playoffs, doesn't it? It will come the end of the season. You've probably, with the squad you've got and the financial resources that are available, Paul Rowley's probably got to do something a little bit different to try and get you boys over the line. And who knows? Because there's more than one way of playing rugby league. And after 5 rounds of Super League, are you? I'm guessing you're happy with Salford. Are they on par for where you think they'd be, or are they probably performing a little bit better than where you thought they might be?
I think they're performing better, mate, to be honest, because you look at last season, the games we won this season, we didn't win last season. We lost to you boys at home. We lost away to St Helens, so we picked up 2 wins there that we didn't get last season. So I think for me, looking at the table, I mean, I've watched quite a lot of games recently, and I look at the sides like Huddersfield, Hull FC, London, Warrington, yourselves. I don't think there's a right lot between a lot of those sides, really, to be honest with you. I mean, Hull are going to be tough to beat. They're always tough to beat at home and whatever. And if we can keep nicking wins and whatever, I think that the only thing for us is the squad size. We're probably going to run out of bodies because we've only got, what is it, 25, something like that. We're trying to get people in on loan. So it's tough, isn't it, keeping everybody fit towards the end of the season. And that's when you need your big squad. But no, I think we've done really well up to now. And like you said there, I don't think we'll finish near the bottom. You can never say never, can you? I mean, if we run out of bodies and whatever, we could do, but just got to keep winning matches and performing. And
there is no chance. While Castleford, London, and Hull FC are in that league, there is no chance that Salford are going to be finishing anywhere near them places. Well, anywhere in them places, because I think them three have shown already this season that they are an absolute mile off, and for a variety of different reasons. But I just can't see how they've almost created their own little mini league of who can finish top of that bottom three. I'd be very surprised if anyone breaks them shackles. Rovers defeated Salford last season. Paul, 28 points to 10 in the quarterfinals to go on and reach the semi-finals. What was your first reaction when you saw the cup draw and you'd been drawn away at Craven Park?
Well, it's funny. I raced home to watch the draw because I'm always excited by the draw. And it's a bit of an anticlimax when you get drawn out early doors and be away from home. And it's a good draw for us. I mean, I remember the cup tie 21 years ago when we played in 2003. That was a foul Friday night. I think we won that 12-2. So, we've played a couple of times over the years in the cup. I remember the 25-0 at Salford where you beat us at the Willows in the final season. So they're always good games. I enjoy going to Hull and out of the two cities, I'd say the East was probably my preferred choice, to be honest. There was a great atmosphere and should be a cracking match. Last season, when you beat us in the cup, it sort of derailed our season, really. I think it took a lot out of us, that defeat, and we were never quite the same after that. We lost a few players around that time. We got beat at St Helens around that time as well. We got a few injuries in a real tough game, but we didn't really come back from that. So this could propel us this season. It really could. Good, we both come in to the cup in the sixth round, so you win this, you're in the quarterfinals, aren't you? The way the cup is sort of staged now, you've only got to win 3 games, haven't you, to get to Wembley. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm under no illusion it's going to be a very, very hard game. You lads are very, very difficult to beat at home, and it's always a good atmosphere, and I'm sure it'll be no different on Friday.
Yeah, and one player we saw revel in your 17 victory over Hull Kingston Rovers was Mark Sneyd, leading the Man of Steel points. I mean, what's he got? Maximum points for the fourth consecutive week against Wigan. I mean, a player who's really hit the ground running, hasn't he, this season? And is he, I'm guessing, so pivotal to everything Salford do? Or do Salford have a plan B? Or is it literally Mark Sneyd or bust at the moment?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, at the moment it seemed that way, wasn't it? Because everything's coming off him. Like, he's playing a different role now, with Brodie Croft gone. It seems to have, last season, that them two worked together well, but now he seems to have be taking a lot more on now, and it does seem to be going through him. But his partnership with that 𝗀𝗂𝗃 was looking good. Obviously, 𝗀𝗂𝗃 missed last weekend because of his failed his HIA, so we'll be back this week. But no, he's playing the best rugby I've seen him play in his career, to be honest with you. I think he's been really good. He's not missed a goal kick yet, so that's really good. His short kicking game's been absolutely excellent, and yeah, long may that continue. If he wants to get injured, we've not got. Obviously, we've got loads of options there, but we have got players that can fill in. I think our squad this season, there's a lot of players in there who are very, very useful. You look at the likes of Joe Shorrocks, who's played at half-back before. He's a really useful player to have in the team. Chris Atkins, very, very versatile. I think that's what Paul Rowley likes. He said to me the other week he likes rugby players who can play rugby league on the streets. And I think that's his thing. So yeah, it's entertaining to watch it. But Mark Sneyd is a true professional, isn't he? And he's, like I said, playing the best stuff of his career up to now, I think, this season.
Yeah, he's certainly proved to be fantastic, hasn't he, Mark Sneyd? And so a couple of other players, Tim Laffey, Joe Shorrocks. I mean, it's not all on Sneyd, is it? Obviously, he does perform so well, but there's a couple of other star players who were certainly contributing to Salford's form this season.
Yeah, and I think you look at the pack as well. I mean, we've got a really good back row there, Callum Watkins and Sam Stone. Sam Stone's getting better and better all the time. And as you said there, Cherokes, I was very surprised when we signed Joe Cherokes, to be honest with you, because I thought he was a really good player for Wigan, good up and coming player. So really, really useful player to have in the team. Works his socks off as well. And 𝗬𝗔𝗲𝗏 stepped up as well, was losing 𝗦𝗣𝗂𝗃𝗲𝗏. He's filling in really well at hooker and developing into a really good player, as you mentioned there. Tim Laffey looks like he's back to his best. Lee MacDonald is another big signing for us as well. So, and you've got Ryan Briley at fullback, who never lets us down. So, we've also signed a winger from you guys, Ethan Ryan, who came into the side last week, come off the bench. So, we've not really seen much of him yet. So, I've got a feeling he could start the weekend with Chris Hankinson being injured. So, we'll have to see what squad Paul Roller comes up with. But yeah, it's definitely more than just a Sneed show. Yeah,
it was interesting, that one, Ethan Ryan. I saw him on the bench. And what role did he play when he came on for Salford?
He ended up going to fullback. We had to shuffle things round. He took 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 off. We didn't have a hooker on the bench, so we brought Ryan on. He went to fullback, and I think Ryan Briley went to standoff, and Chris Atkin went to hooker. So we changed things round. So Ethan Ryan went to fullback. It looked a bit iffy under the eyeball at times, but he's been injured for a while, hasn't he? So it's going to take him a bit of time to come back. It looks like he's got a turn of pace though, so I would have thought he'd definitely be playing on the wing for us. So we could see him on the wing this weekend, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose, like we've already mentioned there, Paul, in terms of squad depth, there's going to be an opportunity for rotation, is there? It's going to be the strongest available side that Paul Rowe is going to put out.
Yeah, I think that's what tends to happen all week. He names sort of 20 one-man squad, sometimes a 20-man squad, and they're the players that are available, really. There's not much else after that. I think at the moment we've got Ben Ellywell out, Brad Singleton's out, Oliver Partington's out, Adam Sidlow's out. So there's sort of 4 or 5 out of your squad straight away. So yeah, it's not ideal, but it's no use moaning about it. You just got to get on with it, haven't you? And make the best of it, and that's what we've got to do.
I was going to say, Paul, what do you think it is about Salford or the club or the setup they've got there that, despite the adversity, like even the in-game adversity where you've got players switching positions, obviously other teams would struggle under that, but yet Salford still seem to get through it, and not only get through it, but actually excel as well. What do you think it is in the club that makes them do that?
Well, it's not always been like that. I mean, I can think back at times when we were absolute garbage and, losing 80, 90 points and, in certain matches. Not that long ago either, actually. So I think the last few years, particularly under Ian Watson and then Paul Rowley as well, and Richard Marshall to a certain extent, I think they all sort of... There's definitely been a change in culture around the club, I think, and real hard-working sort of thing, backs against the wall. I think Paul Rowley is that sort of coach where it's us against the world sort of thing, and yeah, that's the way we try it. We try and play, but it's not, like I said, it's not always been like that. We've had some real poor teams, and we could write a book on some of the dreadful performances I've seen. But no, it's been a joy to watch last few years. Getting to the grand final and obviously going to the cup final and supporters not been able to go was a bit disappointing, but it's been a lot better over the last 4 or 5 years than the sort of in the 80s and then the 90s. Sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, we were terrible. So it has been better, and it's been good to see. I think with a bit of investment and a bigger squad, we could really challenge, but at the moment we're just a bit limited. Yeah,
and I suppose the way the Challenge Cup's phased this season, if you get through this round, you can almost put it to bed and then concentrate back on Super League before the quarterfinals of the Challenge Cup. Are you a fan of the Challenge Cup, Paul? I mean, it's something I enjoy, and I've seen people say it needs revamping and stuff like that. I don't know what's your opinion, because I think it'd be very difficult if Super League clubs came into the competition any earlier than where they are now, because you already see some blowout scorelines from Championship sides, and I don't know. I think the format's probably just about right now.
Yeah, I mean, what do I think of Challenge Cup? It's the holy grail to me, mate. It's since being like 4 or 5 years old when I started watching rugby league, watching all like the Wembley videos that my dad used to have, and we used to rent them from the village video shop, the green boxes with the BBC on, and we used to watch all the finals. And it was always disappointing because Salford were never in any of them, through the 80s and the 90s. But
is that because you couldn't quite reach the top shelf?
Yeah, something like that. But no, we've been in any of those finals, and we got. My dad used to go every year with his friends and that, right through the 70s and 80s, and watch all the finals, had all the programs as well, and it was just magical. And I used to dream like one day we'd walk out there in the sunshine. It always like the sun was shining at Wembley, and I've had, I have been to the odd final myself, watching it, and it's a great competition. It really is. And I think you're probably right when you say about the teams coming in at the stage they do now. We all want to see giant killings, but the way the game is now, you're probably not really going to see that. So, but if I had the choice of winning the Super League and winning the Challenge Cup, it'd be the Challenge Cup for me. It's something I'd love to see Salford win. We've won, like yourselves, we've only won it once, 1938. We've waited a bit longer than you lads, but no, it'd be magical to get there and play in a final. I think I've said it a few times to my friends. If we were to get there, and actually supporters be able to go, it could be the club could take off, because I think a Wembley final, it's a massive shot in the arm for the club. You guys will know, you've been a couple of times, haven't you, last few years, and it really captures everybody's imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think it's the fact it's at Wembley. The fact the finals at Wembley, just even if you don't like sport, you don't like rugby league, you know where Wembley is, and you know what Wembley is. So I think that definitely adds to it. Paul, I'm going to ask you to put your neck on the line. What's your prediction for Friday night?
Well, I actually ducked our podcast this week because I've not had a voice, so I've not been able to do the devil in the details. So Rob let me have a week off, but I did send in my prediction. I've gone for a close one. I never back against Salford, but I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game for us. I'm going to say Hull Kingston Rovers 14, Salford 20.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game where you wouldn't be surprised if it went into Golden Point, would you? The way the two sides are. And I do think conditions may come into play, because the pitch at Rovers has been cutting up lately. It's not the best pitch, and if but either side can get the kicking game right, we've seen what Sneed can do. Interestingly, Salford are top of Super League for attacking kicks. Rovers are second in the table for attacking kicks. So there's every chance that this could become a game of who can kick best, depending on what the conditions are like. And it's just going to be, no matter what sides are put out on the night, I think the Challenge Cup just makes it that little bit more nervous, that little bit more intriguing, that little bit more exciting. And, who knows? I think I'm confident of a Rovers victory, but I don't think it'll be a clear cut victory or plain sailing by any stretch of the imagination, just because of the fight Salford show and the bit of class that they do have when they need it. So it's going to be a really interesting game, Paul. Obviously, you're coming over to cover it.
Yes, I'll be coming over. Yeah, I've got half a day at work. They let me have half a day, so I'll be up there setting off. I've got to pick my daughter from school and pick my dad up, and we'll be on our way up there to watch it. Yeah, I never miss, mate. I'll be coming. So really looking forward to it. Like I said before, I always enjoy coming to Hull, whether it be West Hull or East Hull. It's always a great day out. And Friday night's a bit tricky, but we organise it with work, and that'll do them a bit of a favour. Probably work a few hours Saturday morning to make me time back, but I'll definitely be there. And sounds like you lads might be watering the pitch and making the conditions a bit more difficult for us, but no, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a great game, mate.
Steve, the squad for Friday night has been announced. There's only 2 changes to that squad on the back of Mikey Lewis and George King being injured. Lewis Senior and Rhys Butterworth coming to the squad, probably as expected to bring them in. What change would you expect? Minimal changes to the starting 13 and the 17-man squad?
I've been trying to think about this. The fact that Butterworth's in, he made 50 tackles for London against Warrington last week, Rhys Butterworth. So he's put in a good performance last week. I can see 3 things. I've got 3 different scenarios. One, that he plays Butterworth and puts Jez in the halfbacks, Jez Litton. 2, here's one for you. Put Sickle at number 6 and brings 𝗀𝗑𝗏 back for 1 game. And I can't think what the 3rd one was now. But I heard this morning the presser that Willie Peters put the press conference he did this week. And he actually said something. He said, talking about Hickle, he said he can play fullback, he can play centre, and he can play 5/8. And that made me think, would he possibly put him at half-back and bring 𝗕𝗂𝗃𝗃 back? I don't know. My gut feeling is that he'll put Butterworth on the bench and play 𝗔𝘂𝗏𝗏 at scrum half. Whatever we do, we've got to keep one man quiet, and that's Sneyd. And if we can keep Sneyd quiet, we can keep Salford quiet. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Huddersfield victory, Steve, shows me that it needs to be round square pegs in square. We don't need to be putting square pegs in round holes. I think 𝗍𝘆's retained his spot at full back. Hickle's retained his place in the centres. I don't think we need to be making room for 𝗕𝗂𝗃𝗃. 𝗕𝗂𝗃𝗃 will get into that team on merit based on what he does in training. So I don't think that's necessarily needs to be done. So that's why I'd go with Lytton in the halves. Willie Peters already said that he'd been in pre-season. Lytton had trained in the halves. And he also, of course, he lined up for Robins in that position last season. I'd bring Butterworth into the squad. Parcells starting hooker, and then I'd go with a bench of Butterworth, Sue, Staunton and Luckley, with Hadley and Whitbread the starting props. I mean, Whitbread and Hadley are most likely to get through the most minutes during the game in terms of the forwards. So yeah, I think we just need to keep it as simple as possible. And don't forget, Steve, this is a game that Rovers cannot lose. You know, there is no second chance. We need to win this, and that's why I'd go with our strongest possible lineup, and I'd put the players in the positions that they play at best.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree. I was just looking at options, that was all. And I agree. I said to you, Lytton at scrum half. And I think one of the key areas is the bench. I looked at Salford's bench against Wigan, and 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗁, you know, Foster, Wright and Ryan. Well, Ryan went on he did play fullback, by the way. He did go on as a fullback. I think we've got a much stronger bench, and so if we keep, and I think 𝗔𝘂𝗏𝗏 would keep Mark Sneyd quiet, and I think if that happened, then we win the game. You know,
yeah, it's definitely not a star-studded Salford lineup, is it? And the fact that they're suffering from further injuries after their game against Wigan, you know, their team pretty much picks itself. The fact that they're having to put Ethan Ryan on the bench as cover as well just shows you where they are. They do play a bit of street rugby. They're not afraid to try things.
I love that term, by the way. I absolutely love that term. Play street rugby.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? And then
going back to the childhood down Crowell Street, using lampposts as try lines and stuff. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you just can't take them for granted, though, can you? And that's one thing that Salford have got, is that if you're not on your game and you're showing some weaknesses, Salford have got the players to exploit that. And I am confident of a Rovers victory, but I think it'll be based on our defence and what I've seen from the Robins so far this season. We've got enough to shut them out. And yeah, if you are going to the game on Friday, make sure you're loud and proud. And of course, as we already mentioned at the start of the Robin pod this week, pay your respects to Phil Lowe, because he's a man, a player who deserves our utmost respect and admiration. So yeah, promises to be a somber night. For the people who are listening and watching, thanks for sticking with the Robin pod. I know there was a few sound issues during this recording. It is going to get ironed out. It will get better, I promise you. So thanks for sticking with it. The Robin pod is powered by Budget Ties Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the clubs, players and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Steve, thanks for coming on this week's Robin pod. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.